Unheard. Status. I got my man Rage on the beat. As always, nigga. Yeah.
Dumelang Babuhi, hello everybody. Welcome to another episode of Young Gifted and Black with your homeboy Lebo Siakani, aka Leb's Status. Now today, I'm so excited. I'm chilling with a filmmaker, a director, and producer. Now this is a man who just won an award for his new film/documentary called A New Country. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce the man himself, Sifiso Khanyile. Homeboy.
Hey, sir.
How you doing, dog?
I'm easy, man.
Yeah,
Good.
dog. Thanks for coming through, dog.
Thank you.
Took a while, eh?
Hey, yeah. We've been trying to get this together for some time now.
Yeah, dog.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming through, dog.
No, thanks for inviting me.
Sure, dog. So, Fisto, obviously I called you here on this show because, you one homeboy who's really like doing his thing in the film space. You're quietly going about it, but you're really killing it, you know? So much that you're even getting recognition like overseas as well. So I don't want to talk too much about you. I want you to do the talking.
Okay.
So for people that don't know you, just give us like a brief background of who you are.
Okay. Sifiso Khanyile. I was raised in Sprayview. We kind of grew up together.
Yeah.
I was born in Soweto in Middlelands, but then we moved here very early on. Man. So, just a regular cat. I used to like playing basketball, namachita. And then we really got into music. We started by rapping. The music thing didn't work out. I was a founding member of Blackjacks.
Yeah. That was a big rock.
Yeah,
African
man.
group.
And it's funny because I left the band and then the guys like blew up. So there was a lot of regret.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the music thing wasn't working out. I was doing odd jobs here and there, and they weren't really satisfying my soul, basically. So I saw an opportunity to get into film. There was a learnership that was advertised in the papers for it was Monash at the time, but it became Big Fish eventually. So I did this film learnership, and this was like 2006. And then I just started making my way up in the film industry, just working as a researcher, writer, production assistant, that kind of thing. Eventually, starting my own company and working independently as a producer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now, as a producer, so like, what does it take to be a producer? Because I know you can operate the camera. I know you sit in front of the camera. You write scripts. Like, what would you say like it really takes? Because I'm not sure how long it took you to blow up. But how much effort do you really need to put into sharpening yourself as an artist?
So producer actually, it's probably the most like central role in filmmaking. So the director or the writer, or sometimes it's the writer director, is the creative vision, but the person who knows how to steer the ship, who knows how to put it together, is the producer. Producer will hire crew, will try and raise, if they're executive producer as well, they try and raise money, but they will also work with budget in terms of allocation and that sort of thing. That takes quite a bit of training. Some people come out of film school and they kind of work in different production companies as production assistants, production coordinator, line producer, and then producer. But there are people who I guess are fortunate to start doing their own thing from the beginning, and they produce like smaller productions. Like if you've got a crew of like just a few people, then it helps. But I would say that it took me to be comfortable as a producer. It took me about 10 years.
Solid hard work.
Yeah, solid hard work. Just working in the industry again. Production assistants here, but being a researcher here, a writer here, like that kind of thing. Because as a producer, you read the script and you have to
Yeah.
say whether or not it can make money, whether or not it makes great television or cinema, whether or not it will connect with the audiences. Like you must have, you must be able to wear all of those hats. So you have to understand writing, you have to understand directing, you have to understand blocking. So you can challenge your director if you're not sure about certain decisions. Yeah, man, it's like I say, it really is for me like the heart of any production.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, rightfully so, because I mean, you're not backed up by a huge corporation. From what I understand, you've been doing your own thing, and you've worked on like quite a few big projects as well. I don't know if you comfortable with talking about it, but maybe you can tell me about a few like projects that you worked on successfully, like coming up to where you are now.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, just because it's on the top of my head, the most recent, I mean, we spoke about it, A New Country, that was my documentary, which I directed and produced.
Yeah.
Before then, I mean, it took me, I'd say, about a year. Usually it takes other people just a bit longer to make a feature documentary.
Yeah.
But yeah, luckily, the reception was really great. We got 2 awards so far, and a special mention. And it's been over in over 15 festivals. There was Uprise before that, which I
Yeah,
made
yeah.
with Tejo, my wife. She produced. I directed. I wrote and directed. She produced. That also took us close to a year.
Yeah. And that
Um,
was a big movie.
yeah, man. It's still today. It's still I still get requests. I mean, it's showing at like Columbia University.
Yeah, yeah.
It was on SABC. It was on BET.
Yeah.
So I've been kind of fortunate to try and you know, how do I say it? To figure it out by myself very early on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've been independent for some time now, you know. Uh, b- but I mean, it hasn't been easy. And when I was working in the industry, I started in Kumbulakaya.
Yeah,
A lot of
yeah.
people don't know that. Like my
I didn't
research,
know that.
yeah, like I was a researcher on Kumbulakaya. I was just reading the letters that people were writing
Yeah,
in to
yeah,
try
yeah.
and find their loved ones. And some of them, were from jail and
Yeah.
yeah, so that was my first job,
Yeah.
and then I went on to Born Free Media, and I was a research assistant, and at some point I was a news producer for ABC News. I actually
Yes,
did that
yes,
for
yes.
5 years.
And that's a big corporation.
Yo, that's
How much
Disney.
did you take out of that experience?
A lot, man. So some things kind of, like you can learn skill, like a technical skill, but other engagements are really about you and about your confidence and then skill, yes, but not so much. And I think going into news producing for me, you really worked on that because one, if there's a breaking news story, you have to call the guys in the bureau in New York and tell them, hey, this thing is happening. They might reject the story. You have to keep trying. You have to, keep pitching stories. And when you're not pitching stories, if they say they've got an interest in a story, they want a character,
Yeah.
you have to find that character for them.
Sure.
It might be, someone in like Mandela's family,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So you need to make
Sure.
connections. You need to kind of make cold calls
Yeah,
and be
yeah,
like, hey, I'm from ABC News. We'd like the story,
yeah.
and make it happen. So I think in the beginning I was a little rusty and I was nervous, but I had a great team behind me.
Yeah,
And so that really kind of solidified my confidence as a producer.
Yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
think maybe it also, the name also,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
kind of, sort of like gave me a lot of backing.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think after that, yeah, I was really ready to just like do my own thing, and then
Yeah.
I finished in 2015, and in 2016, Uprise comes along. I responded to a call for a documentary about June 16, and luckily we got the pitch, and we made Uprise.
Yeah. But how
Yeah.
much work goes into like a full production? To shoot like a documentary, I mean, that's like how many hours? Is it like an hour?
Wow.
For a
So
doc, and the movie is like what, 2 hours?
yeah, so feature documentaries are anything from like I mean, 40 minutes, some people still regard as short, but let me just say between 60 and 90 minutes for documentaries, you know.
But obviously, to get that 60 minutes, you must shoot a bit more.
Yeah, the amount of work that goes into making a feature documentary, you know, it's yo man, let me just say that on average you'll have about 12 people speaking in a film, and sometimes it's a minimum, you know. Some people have up to 20 people speaking in a feature documentary. If it's like an interview style documentary, you know, maybe each person is being interviewed for an hour, meaning that you've got 12 hours, between 12 and 20 hours of footage that you need to cut down into 1 hour or 90 minutes, you know. So it gets very tricky because there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of content, there's a lot of material. You have to decide what goes in, what doesn't, but also you're telling a story, so you have to have like a narrative, and you have to be able to thread that narrative throughout, so that people understand that there's a beginning, middle, and end, you know, all of those things. And sometimes you get creative block. There's no inspiration. You don't know which direction the story is going. You know, some people take 2 years, 2 to 4 years making a documentaries. When I say a year is really just the minimum, you know. So yeah, you know, production can take anything from 2 weeks, maybe even 30 days, just shooting, and then post-production, that's where the story is actually really being told and refined, and you know, and crafted. So in post-production you can spend like again, you can spend like 3 months to maybe even 2 years just editing.
Because I mean, to even make it relevant, to make it link, all of that stuff, you literally have to be like self-driven, you know. You can't really even rely on other people's opinions that much.
And that's why you need a good producer, because now you need to, all of the time needs to be accounted for, you know. You need to be you need to pay people who are working. You need to you know, rent, if you know, renting studios and that kind of thing, that needs to be paid for. So it needs to be budgeted correctly, you know. You can't under budget. So again, you know, you need a really good producer to tell a good story, because then they will know what the limits are. But yeah, I mean, I often think I do a lot of development. So even before I go shooting, because it saves me during production and post-production. So my pre-production and my development phase is really thorough, because I want to know when I go out and shoot that I'm well prepared. I know what I want. You know, both in terms of story and characters, and you know, and all of those things. So by the time I go shooting, the idea is pretty clear in my head. But you know, stories change also. Like someone might say something that might take you in a different direction.
But now tell me something. Why is it that you know, it's so challenging for filmmakers in general, you know, versus like musicians and actors, especially here in South Africa? You know, what do you think the problem is like in that department?
I think film is like cost intensive. It's labor intensive. Um, you know, it takes time. Also, you know, you need to raise funds. You know, if a documentary, average documentary is shot for, you know, on average, I think R1 million. Yeah, you can have like documentaries for 500,000. These are features, you know, 750, but a sweet spot, I'd say, is 1 million up to 2.5 million. You know,
I mean, you have to generate money also from that.
Yeah, but here's the nice thing is that South Africa is actually one of the few countries that are well funded when it comes to like government grants and incentives and all of those things, you know. So our government is really doing a great job in funding film production in this country, you know. In fact, you know, I travel a lot overseas, and when I tell them about the incentives that we have, they find it unbelievable. You know, you can find 80% of your production using government funds. You know. So there's that, you know. But I think the struggle, and as far as the producers are concerned, is really not getting enough money, not getting money in time, not getting the right kind of people, directors not having producers, not knowing who to speak to, that kind of thing, you know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
and for actors as well, you know, it's
Yeah.
really just about not having like a cohesive industry where
Industry,
people
yeah.
you know, have some like a lot of synergies,
Yeah.
and trying to really get things off the ground. You know,
Yeah.
I again, you know, feel like I'm in a fortunate position in that, you know, I find a way to tell my stories.
Yeah.
You know, it might take me time, it might take me a great deal of effort, but I
You don't
will,
have
you
to.
know, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, I'm not sure about like artists outside of the film industry,
Mm.
but the film industry is in South Africa is actually, I'd say, it's doing quite well. The only
Yeah.
problem is audience development. So people are not watching films.
Yeah.
Yeah, so films were not, even before
Yeah.
COVID, they're not performing very well in cinemas. You know.
Would you say technology, like the evolution of technology, has anything to do with that?
Partly, yeah, you know,
Yeah.
because it just means that um, audiences are finding more ways of seeing content. You
Mm.
know.
And for free sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes for free, but also trends of watching are changing. People
Mm.
just, if you went to the cinema, you knew you're going to be sitting down for 90 minutes
Yeah.
on average watching a film,
Yeah.
you know. Where now things are 10 minutes, you know,
Yeah.
25 minutes, maybe even 5 minutes online, and you've got the whole story. So, you know, all of that
Yeah.
is kind of changing the landscape.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So now, what would you say to like a young kid out there who wants to be a filmmaker, first, or would you say it's more passion driven, or a bit of hard work, also a bit of hustling? What would you give, like, just shortly as an advice to someone like that?
Yeah, it takes a lot of passion, you know,
Yeah.
a lot of passion. Like you have to be completely in love with what you're doing.
Yeah.
You have to know that it's going to take a lot of work.
Yeah.
So it's you're carrying a vision through, you know. It shouldn't just be about opportunity.
Yeah.
If you just see opportunity, they're in the wrong space, you know.
Yeah.
Because like I said, man, you know, like time intensive, labor intensive,
Yeah.
cost intensive as well.
Yeah.
You might not get it right a couple of times, but you just need to keep going. But
Yeah.
yeah, you need to be driven by
By
passion. You
passion
need
more
to
than anything.
more than anything.
Yeah.
You know, and you need to know that there'll be a lot of rejections as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
for every film that I make, I probably submit like four applications, and one of them gets in. You know,
Over a period of how long? Like,
maybe I can submit for a year and not get anything, and get a
sure.
one film in 2 years.
And
You
this is
know,
your full time job.
this is my full
Yeah.
time thing. You
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
And so it's really just about that. I hear people complaining a lot, saying, "Oh, we're not getting money, we're not getting
Yeah. Yeah.
opportunities."
Finding whatever.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
I look like the guy who's got it figured out when actually, you know.
You just work smarter, bro.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
maybe harder as
And
well, you
harder.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I can't speak for other people's efforts, but I know what I put in, you know.
Yeah. And you believe in it, Fist. I think in this space you really need to believe in what you're doing. Like you have to like believe in it. You know.
For sure, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now for anyone out there maybe who would want to work with you, like do you have any channel that you use? Maybe you can just give us like your social media handles uh, while we edit.
Yeah, I mean, you can check out my Instagram. It's at Sifiso, but the Sifiso spells with some numbers. It's 51FI150. Sorry, 51F150.
Yeah.
I don't have a Twitter account. I had
Yeah.
to take it off because that's Twitter for me. It's just not a great space.
Yeah.
Sifiso Khanyile on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and Sifiso Khanyile on LinkedIn as well. You know. But yeah, you can go to my company website, which is anaforafilms.co.za.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can drop an email there as well.
Yeah, Alafora Films.
Anaforafilms.
Alafora, okay.
Yeah,
That's
.co.za.
it. That's it. Okay,
Yeah.
Fistone. Yeah, I think we've covered pretty much everything that I want to talk to you about. Thank you so much for coming through on board. And I wish you all the best in everything that you're doing. Keep kicking ass like you always do, man.
Thanks, man. Thank
Yeah,
you.
good
Yeah,
luck,
yeah. Keep doing your thing.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks for inviting me.
Sure.
Yeah, sure.